inside the business, the inertia, the day-to-day tasks, the BAU, the occupation with what's going on and the challenges, makes it very difficult to coordinate and orchestrate transformation. Very difficult.
Today, we're with Amir Malik, Managing Director EMEA at Alvarez Marsal. Amir is a digital transformation expert, and he's going to tell us what's possible in the world of digitizing our industry so business outcomes, strategies, and the entire customer experience can be transformed. Amir, how are you?
Good. Great to be here. Thank you.
We're going to be looking at emerging technologies, cutting-edge technologies that are to come, that you think are really going to change the marketing space in the next 3 to 5 years. As an expert in the digital transformation space, what are the big changes you're seeing now?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that most people are aware that the way that things have been done are going to change. And most people equally don't exactly know how. So we are aware that there's this huge wave of AI technology, tools, solutions which can kind of improve the way that day-to-day tasks are run in the marketing kind of slither of a company, how their whole operating model is functioning, creative, etc. But there's a bit of paralysis because where do you start? What's the good tool versus the bad tool? Who are the market leaders? Who will be the winners? Where do you lay your bets? These are the sort of questions that businesses are asking and the CEO's asking. And everyone on earth is kind of looking at AI and thinking about the existential question and what role it plays. At a company level, the obvious question is how more efficient can it make a business? How can it improve a business? And how can it improve customer experience as well? And you kind of need to get that balance right, I think, in the equation.
It's interesting you raised the word paralysis. It's almost I can imagine a scene where there's lots of people, a multitude, worried about dipping their toe in the water first. People don't know which way to move.
Yeah, I think it varies depending on the size of the company and the age of the company. But if you take your sort of top 1,000 businesses, you know, the people that kind of know about AI and are venturing in AI aren't necessarily always trusted at the organization, are not senior enough to influence the decisions. But then you've got very senior people that are all using AI in their day-to-day lives. So the CEOs, you know, often we've directly experienced this. So well, I'm using ChatGPT to do this now. And I've changed the way I search. I no longer go to a browser. Surely that's what other people are doing. What's the implications of that on my business? And so what we need to do is bring the right people together and ensure that, you know, you've got people that are really talented with AI, that know how to utilize those tools and use AI. But they're also kind of under the right governance and they're working transparently. What the tools or businesses they're going to partner with are kind of trustworthy as well. And so there's loads of questions to answer. The typical experience is, oh, we're doing AI. You hear this a lot. So if you know, anyone's at a lunch or breakfast or client meeting, B2B, they'll be so, we're doing AI. What are you doing? Well, we put Copilot live. That's not, you've got one utility live, which is very useful, but that doesn't mean you're doing AI. I mean, have you set up an AI office in your business? Have you really looked across the business and think about where disruption is going to be, how it can enhance certain business functions, etc.? You know, what's the holistic AI adoption plan?
Are you faced with blank faces when you ask those questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an opportunity for someone like me. So when we saw the kind of AI curve, we thought, well, we need to get really organized around how we kind of articulate what you should be doing with AI. Where do you start? What are the use cases that actually will drive value now? So that's another reason where you have lots of AI solutions on the market, but not all of them realize value at scale. And so you can spend a lot of time looking at something, but actually the gains or the return is small. So you need to make sure you're making the right bets as well.
Well, lots of people say that, don't they, in business? They've introduced an AI, Sometimes it's a solution looking for a problem. Sometimes they've introduced it because they think it's quite cool.
Yeah.
But when they've looked back after 5-6 months of using it, they've not realized any efficiency gains and any value gains. Presumably that's the biggest challenge.
It is. I think that's the hype theater around AI is bigger than the utilization at the moment. But if you kind of go into where the entrepreneurial kind of Instagram business founders are, you know, you're getting one-people companies who stand up their business using AI tools everywhere, and the general public can interact with that business, which is completely powered by AI. So AI gets kind of bad press on the fact that the adoption is poorly done by businesses and the value isn't there. You know, when the CFO or the CEO pushes the practitioner and says, okay, right, what's the return on what we've done? Because we spent this much. They can't see it. And so that's where I think you need to have some rigor in how you launch your AI solutions and launch your AI kind of action plan as a business.
So go on and share the state secrets. How do you crack that nut? How do you stop people just, buying AIs and then hoping some of it works?
You need to know the areas of your business which you're aware of are the most laggard. You know, you've not really updated them. Second point on that is that's an opportunity for you. So AI can leap now where you may have been slow in your digital transformation. Your AI transformation can make you ahead of the curve. And those areas where you're laggard, you also need to anchor that in, what's the cost base around that? You know, what's the bill to your business to provide or sustain that function? And then identify clearly how AI can reduce that cost, improve the overall quality of that function, and improve the outputs. And if that's a customer-facing function, then it's really beneficial, right? You can't even measure or quantify some of the benefits there.
We'll come to customers in a minute. I'm interested about the customer experience and the effect of technology on it. But before we get to that, we'll go back to the laggards. So if you're asking your clients, okay, guys, tell me what's really slow, time-consuming, painful, boring in your organization that you want to kill by using technology, what sort of successes have you delivered in that area?
So if you look at some businesses, they will be on sort of versions of SaaS that have not been updated for years.
How long?
It's 10 years.
Really?
There are businesses that are household brand names that still don't have functioning CRM.
You spill the beans?
No, I couldn't mention the client names, but I mean, there'll be lots of people that resonates with.
Yeah.
And regional kind of stacks that are local to certain markets. So some markets are on some technology, other markets are on other technologies. I'm a private health insurer member. Yeah. It was a corporate membership. I moved personal when I left the company.
So you got it as a perk of a job.
Yeah.
You were happy with the service, and when you moved company, you bought it yourself.
Correct.
Yeah.
My daughter sort of sprained her ankle,
right,
and she's on the policy with me. So I rang up, renewed it, paying. 3 months into the second year of renewal, rang up because I couldn't log in, and got through an IVR that was about 2 minutes long. Select this option, confirm your date of birth. This is all IVR, automated. Then got to the wait line and said, you're waiting 25 minutes. Waited 25 minutes. During the call, we said, we can do a ringback service.
Yeah.
Press 1. Did the 1. Right, we'll ring you back on this number. Then I got the ring back. Rang by a department that said, right, you're Amir, yes. Oh, we're the corporate team. We deal with corporate policyholders. I said, well, I'm not a corporate policyholder. I said, sorry, this is the number you need to ring. I then rang that number. There's a 40-minute wait. Mm-hmm. And we got a ring back service for you. Rang it. They rang me back. Again, the same corporate department rang me back. So what you're seeing there is data, CRM is not linked in this company. And this is a company that posts on LinkedIn about how they're doing wonderful things with AI, because I see it. And I know people that work there.
Yeah.
And I just was utterly frustrated as a consumer. Now, the thing with AI is no one should be on hold ever again.
No.
You literally, if anyone's talking to the voice engine on ChatGPT or you've heard of Bland, you can be concierge throughout the entire experience.
Yeah.
And so I don't expect them to be live with it, but I surely hope that they are bringing AI into that function to improve the experience. And I don't know who, if I shudder to think that, if I worked in that department, I'd be really concerned. I want to think like a customer, the end customer, and that experience is terrible. It took me like 3 days just to resolve it through email.
It's a great example because that's the interface of an internal process which directly affects your customer base.
Correct.
I mean, nothing is more maddening than wasting your time on a product you yourself are buying. You're paying to waste your own time. You've given a perfect example. There's no malice there, but the way the structure is set up or the company hasn't been properly looked at. And there's an AI that can do it. It must be incredibly satisfying when you're able to find tools and recommendations for businesses that can actually change the lives of those businesses and their clients.
Absolutely. So it's really, for me, it's a very special time, right? So kind of the promises of AI 5 years ago, pre-COVID, the IBMs, etc. Everybody was talking about it, but there wasn't really anything beyond your content algorithm, AI, very powerful stuff, machine learning. Some might even argue that the models are using machine learning. There's a whole controversy and debate. I don't care about that. What I care about is, can it provide a reliable service and be a utility that can improve the customer journey? And it can. It absolutely can. And so for me, what I identified, as much as frustration it gave me, I was texting my friends saying, I just see the opportunity is endless. Right, it was a colossal opportunity to change our lives and our experience. You think about airlines. I won't name or shame any airlines, but the level of frustration you deal going from one system to another, trying to log in passwords. AI can cut through all of that crap, and it's real. And this is the sort of level of conversation that the CEO should be having at his board or her board.
Are they having those conversations?
Yeah, they are. I honestly believe they are. I think this is very different to before. Like if you think about like MarTech, AdTech, the weird and wonderful world of those platforms, there was a bit of a barrier between the tenured executive, the CEO, understanding exactly what's going on with all these systems and the platform companies and where their money's going. AI is in everyone's face, right? It's like you open your phone, you're going to see an AI generated video, and you can't tell whether it's real or AI. You're interfacing with chatbots that are now conversing. No one talks about the Turing test anymore. I can pass the Turing test now. So I think when you look at it, you got to say CEOs are aware of that. They're seeing that. They're seeing their children use it. Depending on their ages, they're seeing their children get jobs at these companies. They want them to work in the field of AI. So these conversations are definitely happening.
People will be listening to you and thinking, this guy, he runs right across the value chain in his job. There are a plethora, almost an infinite amount of AI products out there. There are an infinite amount of problems that organizations have. Where does he start? How do you make that assessment so you understand what tools are available, understand the nature of the problems that are there to be fixed, and then match the tool to the problem? Because as you yourself have said, if you don't match the tool to the problem, you get solutions looking for problems. You get AIs that aren't necessary.
Yeah, I think you got to qualify the ask by, there's what people are talking about doing and hearing about doing. There's what people want to do, and there's what your company needs to do. And fundamentally, the company needs to ensure that the bottom line is healthy. It's got other priorities and accountabilities, but the bottom line needs to be healthy. So if I have a call center function that's costing me, and if you take a large scale organization, multi-market, you go anywhere between 100 to 1 billion in cost on call centers. So how can AI disrupt that? And which is, the phenomenon that's staring the call center providing businesses and technologies in the face. And so that's an area that you could go and start with. You look at HR, if you want to get really lean there, you think, how are HR requests, emails, how that whole department functions with the workforce. AI can concierge loads of your HR requests now. So if your company has an average of 20 HR requests a day, emails, What can AI do to kind of sort that, prioritize, respond?
Most of them are fact-finding missions, aren't they? You know, what does my contract allow me to do?
Exactly.
How does this perk play out?
Shared parental leave.
Yeah, what's the parental leave situation? All of that stuff, which is it's a question which has a factual answer, which if it's handled by a human takes a lot of HR time, which could be better spent on things like resolving disputes.
Yeah,
the stuff where humans really add value. We've talked a lot about problems there, but what about areas where the AI can add advantage? You spoke earlier about customer management, but how about customer enhancement? How about making the experience of products and services better for customers? In your space, what have you seen that you think is going to really revolutionize that space in the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
So yeah, and I think like just reflecting on how I talked about it, you know, it's a lot of like AI replacing, but I think it's about not just automation, but augmentation.
Right.
And so if I look at AI today, how can I enrich my agent, my kind of front of house staff that are working with customers, speaking to customers? They should be empowered through AI technology, right? So they should be like wizards of productivity with AI everywhere. And that to me is an opportunity that will allow you to increase the customer satisfaction, retention, cross-sell, upsell, which is an obvious one, and really create, I guess, a different impression around your business by the level of servicing to the end customers. And that's also direct to consumer and B2B as well. I think that in terms of the AI, in terms of what it can provide, if we take sort of customer and marketing, creative agencies, personalization at scale, all the kind of, if you look at the software and platform companies that talks about personalization prior to the creative engine that AI is, and the data kind of coherence that it has as well. You know, now you can offer personalization at scale. You can really tailor experiences for people, not in a non-brand way, in a branded way, in a way that is not, I guess, corrosive to your above the line. It's actually complementary. And that experience can be delivered through AI.
So give me an example of what it's changed, what's different now to how it was 3 years ago, 5 years ago.
So I think if you look at sort of like, take OpenAI, for example, just now they're launching a campaign where they have clearly Instagram creatives where OpenAI is personalizing a sneaker or trainer, depending on the color, the viewer, and that's that dynamic creative experience that you'd expect. Now, you could do dynamic creative, and I'd say, you know, probably you could, I'm going to figure it, 25% of the large companies had got some form of testing around dynamic creative in the last sort of 3 to 5 years. And there are platforms like Smartly that are very good at that as well. With AI, I think not only can you have the dynamic creative, you can then have the landing point that is generated off the context of the user. So they click through and they are now an AI generated digital product or asset. And the person and the individual can interact with that. And that's all AI handled. So the journey is then kind of owned by AI to deliver the last mile to the human engine or to the commerce transactional event. And that to me is an area, so sort of like OpenAI was sort of, people thought it was the dawn of AI. We could get our pizzas faster because
Yes.
It could handle our toppings.
Yeah.
AI is targeting the legal sector. It's targeting HR, consulting, marketing. It's coming for areas that, you know, take some sort of human intuition and delicate handling previously to manage. And that's really interesting.
Most marketers and almost all of this audience are humans, however, so they'll be interested in what you're saying, perhaps fascinated, perhaps darkly fascinated, and wondering, you know, where do I come in? Where do I as a creative professional, where do I as a marketer come into this loop? What role am I going to have to play, if not now, in 2 or 3 years' time, if this stuff can do all the intuition?
Yeah, and as I said, I think it's about how AI complements, augments your business, provides services that you couldn't do. It fulfills your imagination. I'd say the 2 qualities that a marketer should have now, they need to be open-minded and curious, and they need to have the imagination to test and learn, be willing to fail fast. We all meet naysayers on AI. We know there's a lot of hype. We know that a bubble could burst, but it doesn't mean that AI can't fulfill certain journeys and fulfill certain functions. It can.
So what's the starting point then? You paint a really sort of rational picture of it, actually, that, yes, there's hype. Yes, there's probably a bit of a bubble. Yes, there's a whole bunch of gimmicks. There are also great solutions. There are also huge advantages. And there are also things that we can do now that we wouldn't have been able to dream of 5 years' time. But we've got to match the right jobs to the right technology and to the right journey, as you put it. Where do you start in that as a marketer? If you're in a marketing team, if you're a head of marketing, or even a middle of a marketing team with an interest in this stuff, and you can see around you in your agency, in your marketing department, in your business, there are a whole bunch of things that could either be fixed or improved or even introduced by some of these technologies. Where on earth do you start?
So I think you need to engage the market leaders in AI. So, 80 cents of every ad dollar is going to the hyperscalers, the Google and Metas, right? And Amazon and the retail media wing of their business. The ad business has grown exponentially. So you should be talking to the platform companies and you should be pushing them on what AI services they have. But they are being disrupted by AI players. And you need to locate who they are. So OpenAI is one of them, and understanding the role that would play in your value chain and ecosystem. But there are other players. And in terms of the various customer or marketing function that you're focused on, find out who the market leaders are. A bit of research, maybe speak to people like us as well, so we can tell you where to go. And I think that's the opportunity, which is an engagement plan. But in terms of where do you start, I guess, with AI, really you need to kind of bet on two variables. One is what AI is actually good at, and two, where you're going to get the most value from. And so, as I was speaking to a business that is a conglomerate of businesses, large retail businesses, and takes photographs of their products and dresses. And they had to reorganize a whole shoot because they had a dress on a model whose contract expired. So the model was not being paid anymore. So that's
she was in the dress.
She's in the dress.
And they could no longer use the photography.
No longer use the photo.
Any of it.
Correct. So then they kind of scrambled to arrange a photo shoot in a studio with a model for the same dress. And there's bolt some products on and get some photos. I mean, come on, this can completely be disrupted by AI. Now, is there an argument that the image of the AI is not real? Well, one fun activity is to test your colleagues with AI versus real images. Tell them it's a test and say, well, what do you think is AI? What do you think is human? And, in areas like journalism, this is really difficult. It's a really taboo subject, and it's happening there as well.
Well, my work can be mimicked easily. No, but to that point, though, I mean, you've given a great example, because I was once told, if you try to change, when I started my career, I was told by two of my elders, if you try to change anything in any organization, you're going to hit barriers. There'll be people who are, to use your phrase, naysayers. You may see something that's wrong, but it doesn't mean you're going to have the wherewithal to be able to change it. And actually, if you're going out to this space now, you can see what's wrong, but you're still going to hit barriers, and you've still got to do a bit of convincing. So something you have to do, although it's your job to do it, but marketers have another job as well. When they're trying to do the convincing, when they're trying to do the changing, what are the tips you will give them to win the hearts and minds?
You have to, this is why consulting, advisory work, third-party validation exists. It's there to embolden and validate what you're saying and what your bets are. That for me is not going anywhere. I'm a big believer in that as well, right? You're telling your business that change is coming. We need to adapt, or we have an opportunity to make this change. business resistance is part of preservation, right? And organizational resistance, sometimes it can be politics, but in other situations is that, changing a part over here might break something over there.
Yeah.
So, that's why that advice rings true. There's the old interview question, your boss has asked you to do something. You found a better way to do it. Do you, A, do it your boss's way, B, go and tell them you found a better way to do it, or C, do you do it the way that you think is better? And some employers, they want A, do it your boss's way. They will hire you only if you answer A, I will do it the way the boss told me, even though I found a better way. And that's because they don't want you to rely on your ego to come back to the business and say, look, I'm way better than you. By the way, I was one of those guys.
Did you answer A, B, or C?
I'm an A guy.
You're an A guy.
I'm an A guy because the context matters.
I'm a B guy.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah.
The context matters.
Yeah.
However, what I do believe is the right forum to present a different way of doing things.
Yeah.
So, for example, typical company activity is Excel reporting or Google Sheets if you're using Google Sheets. But Excel is the most important business productivity tool. So you look at the Excel and say, oh, this table's crap. I can rearrange this whole table and it can be so much more clearer. But then someone in finance is going to kill you because actually that part of the table links to this over here. And there's a reason why this month gets invoiced here and that month gets invoiced there. And you didn't have that context. And so I think with AI and with business change, you do need a bit of validation externally. You do need to ensure that you're not just kind of operating off adrenaline. You have to have, there is some instincts which are obvious and all businesses will see that, but you have to have a bit of, kind of rigor around what you do and what you recommend to the business, because also you'll be accountable for it.
Well, it's easier to lead change when you've got expert lieutenants to help you with that change. And I think that's an important lesson, is that, there are people out there to help you consult with your business about this stuff. It's not something you have to be isolated and exposed saying, we've got to do this and do this now and do it this way. You've got guys out there that can help you. Go and find them. Yeah, exactly. You when you don't know, ask those who know.
Ask those who know.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to regret saying this because we have talked a lot about AI. But beyond what you would call classic AI, what do you see are the big technologies that are going to be changing the marketing space in the next 3 to 5 years?
So I think we might be moving to a prompt-based future. And to illustrate what I'm talking about, the way in which you would have Googled or you would have searched content is if you wanted to check football results, you'd write football results in Google, or you'd write Chelsea, Man United. But when you use ChatGPT, you frame it as a question. You're prompting the agent. So you say, what was today's results in the Premier League? Say, what was the score with Chelsea? And the way you frame your asks is as if you're interacting with a human. And what you're getting back is a much more precision level response. And right now, you don't need to go through 10 pages of advertising to get to it, or links. You actually just get the consolidated response. And Google has obviously adapted to this by creating AI mode. So AI overviews and AI mode, which is hammering the traffic of publishers and websites. But it also begs the question, why wouldn't I have a single interface where I access all of my tools and my information? So I think if I was a marketer, I'd make some bets. I'd bet on, something like ChatGPT, and it could be the others as well, Perplexity, etc., becoming the single most utilized app on your device, and therefore ensuring that the responses that are related to my business or my product lines are pointing to my business and directing people to my business. And then also, how do I kind of create a relationship directly with the customer using AI as well? So, I recently flew to New York on Virgin Atlantic. It was operated by Delta. So, when you buy...
Was it a Delta aircraft?
It was a Delta aircraft, right?
They've just been badged online as Virgin.
And the whole journey's Virgin in terms of the digital journey. And they sent me a WhatsApp message reminding me to check into the flight. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And I read it. And prior to prompting with ChatGPT, I would have been, I think this is a bit more invasive than I would have liked. Post ChatGPT, if I had a question or if they gave me a chance to prompt, I probably would have prompted it back as well. So do you know what gate it is or what terminal, etc. And so I think we're moving at a pace where prompting will become a norm, and therefore people will have a more research-based frame of mind around product purchases. So how do you create collateral that is responding to a research frame of mind?
This is fascinating because I was listening to you speak then, and I just thought that I've made that segue myself, and I've not noticed myself doing it. The football example was perfect because when I'm in the car, I press the Siri button on the steering wheel, and I ask her what the scores are. But I ask it as if I was asking a friend what the scores were, or a human, and then she tells me all of the scores. It's really handy when you're driving because you keep up with the scores. And I hadn't actually noticed that change in the way that I'm searching the internet. You know, you're almost going back to the future, to people who are young who listen to the show. When you remember Ask Jeeves, the question and answer search engine, which was the whole thing was designed as if you asked it a question, and it very soon fell out of fashion. It's almost like we've gone back to that, where we are talking to technology as if it is person.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is, well, make your bets in that area as marketers, because that's the way it's going. It's only going one way. We are having more of a conversation with technology. So when you're thinking about your marketing tools, your outreach to customers, the way you interact with your client base, think of things happening as a conversation rather than a search.
Yeah, and there is loads of data now around how once somebody starts using ChatGPT, which has the highest acquisition of users ever at a fast rate, they're 30% less likely to return to search at the frequency that they once were, you know, and that declines quarter on quarter. And there'll be loads of data and stats you can get, you know, we can find this all the time, and it's been published constantly. And so that prompt-based future shows you the power of agentic AI, if I use that term loosely.
You're going to have to explain this, but I've heard it used probably more times in the last 3 weeks than I have in the rest of my life, and I haven't had a chance to look it up. So for the benefit of me and the audience, tell me what agentic means.
I think agentic is being used in multiple ways, but how I just used it was the idea that humans have an agent servicing them, helping them, and the agent is a construct which could be a human, or in this instance is artificial intelligence. But if you say, I've got an agent, well, what do you use an agent for? I talk to my agent. I use my agent for X, Y, Z. AI agents or agentic support to humans is precisely what you just talked about, that Siri journey you take. And Apple have sitting on a gold mine if they can nail that, because the volume of Apple users out there. You know, ChatGPT is another one. And that agentic service layer, you know, tomorrow you'll be asking your agent, you know, can you book my dentist appointment for me? You know, can you tell me when parents' evening is? You know, it's integrated with your calendar. It's integrated with your chats. And that agent will be there, you know, automating and augmenting you throughout your day. That's where we're heading.
So instead of searching for a dress or a suit, you're just saying to the agent, I need a suit for this party. I need a dress for this party. Can you go and find me some options? You're talking to it as if it's a personal assistant rather than sitting on a computer searching suits for parties, dresses for parties.
I need to be at this studio for today's podcast at X time. When should I leave? I'm here right now. This is the journey estimate. This is what you should do. You know, people... I do this, and some of my colleagues are doing this as well. Yeah. And I've turned my agent into like a military robot. And I didn't ask it to call me sir, and then it started to call me sir, and I said, stop calling me sir. But the kind of speed and efficiency it provides is incredible. Now, there is also research which is showing that we are becoming reliant. We can, in theory, become too reliant on AI. And the main risk that poses is in our critical thinking ability. And a real danger is in how AI can be polluted by kind of like nefarious sources. And we've seen instances of that.
Well, this is interesting. This is an interesting area generally, philosophically, but also for you and your business is how do you get to a stage where you get people to rely on this stuff, but don't devolve all of their ethical, critical thinking to it. Don't trust it, but don't trust it too much.
That's,
how do you strike that balance?
Yeah, and this might come as a surprise, but I personally don't believe that I've not seen and I've not worked with one LLM yet that is fully reliable.
No, not me.
Right, and doesn't make errors or hallucinations where you say, hold on a second. So why then the devil's in the detail, and that, you know, that change resistance at a company is quite important, is because you need to know how to kind of ring fence the AI to the limits of its capability and put the right guardrails in place for AI adoption. And, you know, I'm not kind of all in on handing over AI above and beyond human activity. So I sort of, you know, analyze human activity in a business. There's still a lot of value there, and AI needs to be wholly supervised by humans. For me, it's a complementary utility at this time. It is not replacing all humans.
But people will come to you, presumably, expecting it to replace human labour, expecting it to save vast amounts of costs for their business in terms of hiring and recruitment. And presumably sometimes you're finding yourself saying, be careful, there is a big role humans in your business. They may not be doing the right things at the moment, given the technology that's out there, but they still have a huge role to play.
I mean, this might sound like a joke, but private equity, obviously, is really interested in exploring efficiency. And I'm sure my PE colleagues and friends will find that funny. Yeah. The reality is that, you know, that there is a lot of savings because businesses are poorly run as they are. You know, you buy businesses and they sort of haven't updated their OS or operating system. I use that metaphorically in different departments for years because somebody left, or, you know, the person who knew it's not here anymore, or the right hand doesn't talk to the left hand. You know, that is the situation at companies. AI is agitating all of the basics, which may not be replaced by AI, but it's driving sort of like less patience and tolerance for suboptimal setups. And so that's an opportunity for me where I say, like, actually, you're right. This is poorly run, but you're wrong. Surely AI can do all of it. No, but it can be run better. And this is how we'd approach it with some AI.
Do you ever encounter barriers where people sort of take offense that you're looking in the business and you're thinking, oh God, I mean, this is really crap. You don't use that language. Well, you may use language, I don't know, but you...
If I don't like someone, I'll tell them, which has happened.
You may like the person, but not like the process, and think this needs to be radically changed. It's completely antiquated. Other organisations are doing it far better, and there's tools to help you, and people don't realise and may even get their backs up.
Yeah, I think, you know, I can think of many examples like that. And I can think of one, you know, clear example with a household brand name where, you know, the prospect of change was the company was fatigued and it was too much for that CEO to kind of entertain. And I don't sympathize, but I empathize with that position. And I think there's more of that than we realize. And that explains why I have my private health insurer experience in the way that I do. You know, and sometimes, you know, you need the right CEO who's ready to tackle, you know, change in a business. Because it's quite easy to kind of tick along, especially if you're sort of more of a rotational CEO. You'd like to think that the people that recruit in that role are looking for the right sort of person that's not afraid of change, that can make big bets. So who A&M is quite a shareholder kind of focused business as well. It's got a good footprint. And you can see that, that role right now in terms of the AI age, the CEO is crucial to the business, and who the CEO recruits as well.
Is it common enough? I mean, to go a bit maybe a bit highfalutin with this, but the government's its entire productivity plan is based around almost 100% adoption of the right technology at the right time. In order for it to deliver that for the country, it's going to take up a very high, almost complete adoption rate. And yet you're saying there's lots of people that actually remain very resistant to change. They're too tired, they're exhausted, they can't face it. That's why you get problems like things which are obviously wrong in businesses, obviously don't work for the businesses themselves, sometimes don't work for the customers, and still people don't change them. Are there enough changes? Are there enough change makers around at the tops of organisations?
Yeah, and the answer is no. And that's why the likes of McKinsey, BCG, A&M, they exist for this reason, I think. And they make a lot of money from that. Now, the risk is that you just always are dealing with PowerPoint at the end of it, and you can actually do any change. Yeah. And so, for me, it's important that we roll the sleeves up and you kind of get stuff done. And A&M is very much a business like that, and private equity has a low threshold, a low tolerance for anything else. And A&M is one of the largest suppliers of consulting services to PE for that reason, right? We're here to actually improve things, change things, make things better. And you're right, inside the business, the inertia, the day-to-day tasks, the BAU, the occupation with what's going on and the challenges makes it very difficult to coordinate and orchestrate transformation. Very difficult.
Some of it's rational. Some of it is rational, because you alluded to earlier about, and you've mentioned the word risk a few times, and that, part of a leader's job in any organisation is to mitigate risk for that organisation.
Yeah.
And sometimes leaders take a rational view where they think, well, it might not be perfect, but it's good enough. We're profitable. We're going okay. There might be a better system. But to actually experiment with new technologies, new tools, will introduce some level of risk. I mean, how do you strike that balance as a leader? Or if you're talking to a leader, make the case for the balance.
I think the acquisition of AI and change and improving functions is very prevalent in high-performing businesses, right? It shouldn't just be a connotation that, maybe we've talked about that a bit, but it shouldn't be only the connotation that your company is not performing or it's not great or, your team are not very good. That's not how this should be framed, because it's affecting all of us. I don't care who you are or where you work. Nobody has all the answers right now. If you work for Google, you don't know what OpenAI are doing next. If you work for OpenAI, you're thinking, how have Google just launched Nano Banana like that? How can it just replicate an image, and you take your grandfather or grandmother's photo and it can change the angle and it looks completely real? Nobody has all the answers, right? It's a really exciting time, and change can be framed positively as well.
Does it involve a cultural shift in a lot of the organisations you come across?
Absolutely. That's the biggest problem. The cultural change is the biggest problem. I think if you're doing something and you know how to do it, and you can see that you're getting to the goal you want, why would you improve it? Why would you change it? Well, why would you change it to begin with? And you might be even cynical around improving it. I think that is a cultural barrier. If you restructure companies, the culture component is the toughest part in restructuring, I think. I mean, everyone different views. But that's the hardest hurdle to overcome, right? People need to be comfortable with things not being the way they once were. But the core of the business, retaining the core, is the focus, right? Someone would say, well, business, should be a company that wants to deliver amazing results, great customer experiences, and so the whole business is a psychopath. just cares about revenue, you know. And there's research that goes both ways. I think the point is somewhere between, right? You've got to adapt. You've got to change. The culture will not be fixed forever. It needs to know that there's no permanent end state. So how are you evolving in the right way and retaining the core kind of objectives of the business?
Just go back to the where do you start question though, doesn't it? Where do you start? When you see there's a cultural resistance, which there will be in lots of organisations you encounter, you're not going to be able to change that culture overnight. You're probably not going to be able to change it in a year, but you can make the incremental changes in order for what needs to happen. How?
Yeah, those are tough decisions. Those are the tough decisions, right? Those are the decisions which really need to be made by the leaders of the business. You know, do you tear the Band-Aid off? Do you have personnel change? Do you do partial change? Do you accommodate the way things are? I mean, those are really the toughest. That's what makes, I think, a great leader in a business, that they're able to tackle those questions. And you can feel very alone in those questions, you know, in those answers. And you know, the risks of you sort of saying, actually, we're going to do this transformation, we're going to change the way things are, and having the vision for 2, 3, 5 years out to know the company it's for the betterment of the company. You know, that takes kind of bravery and courage, I think. It's not easy.
It's not easy. And my question earlier was, are there enough of those people that are willing to take on that fear, that are willing to, you know, risk what they may perceive wrongly, but they nevertheless still perceive as a chance of failure in order to bring these digital transformations about? I
think time will tell, right? And what we can almost guarantee was that without legislation's a risk here, and restrictions on AI, companies will emerge that offer what your company offers, but with a way better experience and a way smoother journey and using AI. So you won't have a choice. So it's better to be an early adopter, early leader, in my view.
One of the things people struggle with through digital transformation is it's not isolated to your team. It's rarely even is it isolated to your department. In order to bring about the transformation, you've got to make sure that what you're doing to the spreadsheet, to use your analogy, is not cocking up somebody else's spreadsheet. There are a whole bunch of departments and silos in a business that you've got to align. How do you manage that? How do you bring those different parts of the business together so the digital transformation has a chance of success?
Yeah, I think that's the orchestration question, right? And that's why working with partners is super important. If you're a large scale business, you've got many departments, loads of employees, loads of digital transformation use cases, you have to have a partner that can coordinate all of that change for you. And then equally, you can't have, I don't think there is time for 5-year transformation programs anymore. Those annuity type change transformation projects, this is a big bet of mine. They're disappearing. They're not sustainable. The rate of change is too fast. You know, your teams, your personnel need to kind of become more digital and have a better kind of technology savviness now. And so you have to be quicker.
You have to be quicker, which I suppose is good insofar as taking the Band-Aid off, but makes it all the more scarier for people. It's not something we can plan to do over 3 or 5 years anymore, guys. We're going to do it in 18 months.
Well, the thing for me is I'm a big believer, right? If people, I think we've come over the curve of, you know, people are on, you know, they're on CRM, they're on, you know, email, they're on digital platforms. COVID accelerated virtualization of the workforce. Everyone's using ChatGPT and AI right now. I'm hopeful around the adoption, but you know, you've got to be open-minded and you've got to be willing to surrender some points of view that you're entrenched in and make some tough decisions where there's resistance.
Changing the habits of a lifetime is going to be necessary for lots of people.
That to me would be a statement. I wouldn't make that statement. I think that's where that would create fear maybe. But I understand why that statement is being made. That's how AI is being framed as well. It's like, it's going to take over and change everything. But I think it can only do that with the human, not instead of the human. That's the key point. Right? You are prerequisite. We are essential. AI is not fully taken over. It's augmentation over automation fully, right? Supporting us as opposed to just replacing us.
So we follow those tips. We start to change the culture. We remove the fear. We manage to balance the risk of experimentation with the risk of failure. And we start to make progress. It happens. There has been progress in many organizations. It may be tough, but it happens, and you're proof of it. How do we measure it? How do we go back in the early days of a transformation project and say to the FD, to the CFO, to the CEO, look at the change we're making here. Look at the early successes we've had. These are the bottom line improvements we're making.
I think that's part of the pre-wiring of transformation, right? So that's where, as a partner, we could help, right? So we ensure that we anchor all of those changes into business plans and benefits cases that are measured. And this is the key point. You're not going to get everything right, but you just need to get most of it right. That's the key, right? And so if you can get a good chunk of return on your bets, that's great. And you have to be willing to fail fast as well.
Is there a need to get some early data on the board, not just so you've had success, but so you can prove that early success? Because presumably it's not a given that digital transformation projects continue. Sometimes it won't stop.
You use the word rational, right? So you can make something rational to a business, but you can't demonstrate the success easily always through metrics and quantification. And so I do believe that you need to be able to quantify the impact. Fulfilling an AI concierge journey end to end live in sort of public or production, right, with a real customer, that needs to go back to the board to evangelize the board and say, look, it's happening. That consumer did not complain. In fact, they went through the whole journey. So those sort of profound segments and tests, then you can scale out.
It's a fascinating discussion. If we think about the people that are listening to this podcast, they're marketers, different stages in their career, this should be exciting to them, the things that are coming their way. Big change, but exciting change. What do they need to do in terms of their own capabilities, improving their own capabilities, soft skills, hard skills, and all the rest of it, to make sure that they're the vanguard of this, that they're the people that you're choosing as the human in the loop?
I think if you're the new starter, early stage marketeer, or you're kind of early in your career, you absolutely should be exposing yourself to AI. And whatever your job responsibility is and your cross, you should be very curious around how AI is disrupting what you do. If you're the CMO or chief customer officers, chief commercial officers, you need to surround yourself with people that are curious around AI and interested in what's going on now. And you need to be sort of be willing to work with partners externally. You have to have an outside-in view on the business. I do believe strongly in that. Right? That's why I work in the consulting industry at this time. So I think that it's important for you to bring in that thought leadership that can challenge you with what's best in class, what's coming around the corner. And therefore then you can make the right bets on who you hire, what agencies you bring in. We're hearing the right sort of signals around AI, and you can recognize those signals as well.
Well, if you could give one tip to marketers listening to the show, one thing they could do tomorrow or start doing tomorrow to future-proof themselves, to future-proof their competencies, what would it be?
I'd say go all in on AI without being dogmatic about it or doctrinal about it. Oh, it's not a matter of belief, right? That's the kind of pub level conversation right now in the creative industry is, I don't believe in AI. We need to protect creatives. It's like, I think you think about it in the wrong way. Copyright infringement is a real big problem. But I'm talking about in terms of AI as a utility. Go all in. You don't need to sort of make any assumptions or be an evangelist of AI fully, but see what you can do and then ask yourself, is it actually useful to how you work and to your career and to your job and your company? I'd be very surprised if anyone who was negative on AI in 6 months from now will be negative on AI in the creative or marketing industry.
It's interesting you're saying about the pub conversation. I've had those conversations that people are treating it almost like an article of faith, aren't they? As if it's a deity that they either believe in or they don't. And you're saying that's nonsense. See it as a reality. It's there. It's a thing. It's not an article of faith. It's a technology. Work out what it can do.
So the criticisms of AI and what's happening with AI, I think are quite legitimate when you talk about sort of the content that's being produced and social media, the volume of content produced in social media, the sort of level of ambush that has on the brain, and it's just loads of crap on the platforms basically. And then how AI is weaponized in other instances, for political agendas, for sort of recruitment around certain types of thinking or fringe thinking, flat earth theories on the rise.
Yep.
Right. I'm not saying the earth isn't flat, but if you believe that, but I'm saying that that's on the rise because of social media and the ability to now create. AI will just embolden that ability. So there is issues. There are real issues. But if you kind of are responsible and you work in the marketing area, because of that issue over here, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be using AI. In fact, how can AI be part of the resistance to that as well? It's important to see, the full potential of AI, because I don't think it's going anywhere.
Final thought then, how do you get that mindset? How do you get that mindset where you're an innovator, you're open-minded, but you're also maintaining customer trust and being ethical and using it for good? What's the key part of that mindset?
The key word is being open-minded. It's being open-minded. You don't necessarily need to be the person who's innovating. We can't all be innovating. And you can't all be sort of like pleasing customers at the end of the kind of customer touch point all the time. But you have to be open-minded around, you have to care about both, right? Are we innovating? Yes. Are you supporting innovation? Yes. Are you trying to work towards better customer experiences? Hopefully, yes. And how can you use what's available in terms of the technology available and the innovation available to do that? So you have to be open-minded on it. It is that cultural change of open-mindedness that's needed now.
Amir Malik, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
So that brings us to the end of this season. We spent this series exploring emerging technology and how it's changing marketing and potentially the role of marketers. It's been really inspiring to hear fresh perspectives and industry insights from our incredible guests. The contents and views expressed on this podcast are my and my guests' own and do not necessarily represent those of CIM or the companies in which we work. And don't forget to leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice.